Greetings everyone, and let's get straight into reviewing the living daylights out of the new Pergear 35mm f1.4 manual focus lens, and despite its tiny size, I can tell you now that this is for full frame mirrorless camera systems, so that's Nikon Z, Sony E, Canon RF and L mount cameras. This version tested today is for Sony E mount. It's amazing to think that this is a full-frame 35mm f1.4 lens, as it's at least about 1/3 the size and weight of every other one I've tested, not to mention about a quarter of the price at $130 or £120 here in the UK. Even if it's manual focus only, that is an incredible bargain. A tiny size and very low price suggests that image quality could be an issue for this thing, especially considering its wide angle, full frame and very bright aperture nature. But anyone on a hunt for a bargain may not care so much, as the lens will still give you some pretty fantastic images, for those with the patience to manually focus, of course. I'd like to thank the Pergear company for sending me a copy of this lens for evaluation, although as usual this is a totally independent review. The lens's build quality is almost exactly what you'd expect for an inexpensive Chinese optic. It's dead simple, metallic and solidly built, with manual focus, manual aperture control, no image stabilization, no weather sealing. At the rear of the lens, I can report an aperture ring that clicks, but the clicks are pretty randomly dispersed, sometimes every half stop, sometimes every third of an f-stop, sometimes every whole stop. Confusing. The metal grooves on the focus ring look distinctive but feel slightly rough on your fingers, but the focus ring does at least turn smoothly with just enough precision for shooting at f1.4. As you can see here, the lens exhibits moderately strong breathing when changing focus. The lens does not come with a hood, and its front filter size is a very small 43mm. Overall, as I mentioned, the build quality is absolutely dead simple here, as simple as a manual focus lens can be, and what stands out most is simply its tiny size. Let's see about image quality now. I'll be testing this thing on a Sony a7R III camera with its 42MP full frame sensor. No in-camera corrections are available with this lens. At f1.4, we see a surprisingly soft image in the middle, with some mild chromatic aberration on contrasting edges. Yes, this lens was focused correctly on the middle. As we move across the image frame and into the corners, sharpness levels undulate, but at least some kind of image quality can be seen there. Stop down to f2 and everything looks the same in the corners and also back in the middle of the image, quite frankly. However, stop down to f2.8 and sharpness is a little better in the middle, and at f4 the middle is finally sharp. The image corners are still lagging behind though, looking soft, but at least they have more contrast now. The corners become just a little better at f11 and f16, but they're still not very good really. Overall, it's a pretty poor performance from this lens in terms of image quality, which is kind of what I was expecting, especially considering its tiny size and very low price. There are reasons why the optics of full-frame wide-angle lenses are bigger and more complex than this. Alright, well, let's move on and look at distortion and vignetting, also on a full-frame camera. The lens projects somewhat heavy distortion, and at f1.4 very strong vignetting. At f2 those corners look just as dark, probably a result of the lens's tiny optics. However, at f2.8 and f4 those corners slowly begin to brighten up. Again though, it's a poor performance overall here too. This lens can focus as closely to your subject as 30cm, which is okay for a wide-angle optic like this. At f1.4, close-up image quality is unusable. Again, stopping down to f2 brings no real improvement. f2.8 looks a little sharper, but stop down to f4 for a huge and sudden improvement. So, if you're shooting close-up, you'll really want to stop down the aperture here. Let's see how the lens works against bright lights now. This footage speaks for itself really. At f1.4 it's some of the worst flaring I've ever seen from any camera lens. Stopping down to f2, as I'm doing here, helps, but a lot of problems do remain. Moving on, while we're in the dark, let's take a look at chroma levels. At f1.4, bright points of light in the corners of your images see pretty enormous smearing here, which will be very intrusive on your nighttime photography. At f2 it's slightly reduced, but at f2.8 it suddenly goes away. Let's zoom out and take a look for sun stars. Even if you stop down to f11, you'll never get anything other than very subtle starring here, I'm afraid. And let's take a look at the quality of this lens's bokeh. Finally, something I don't have to complain about, because this lens's bokeh is really quite nice and soft, with no outlining or weird substructures. Its only real issue is a stronger than usual cat's eye shape to specular highlights in the image corners. Other than that, those f1.4 images look nice. Overall, well, I hate to say it, but in terms of its technical image quality, this is actually one of the worst lenses I've ever handled, and by quite a way. My test results really speak for themselves there. However, at least the lens has nice looking bokeh. That means that if you're only printing or viewing your images quite small, then it's still possible to get some nice pictures with it. The lens's image quality may be dreadfully poor here, but at least the price and the size are tiny, meaning that hobbyist photographers on a low budget may still be interested. Thanks for watching, everyone. If ever you've thought to yourself, boy, Chris just doesn't make enough content for me, well, you're in luck, as down in the description below you can find a link to my Patreon page where all kinds of exclusive bits and bobs are available to supporters of this channel, and those who do will surely get a warm, fuzzy feeling inside for helping me out. Ciao for now, everyone.